Hey, everybody, this is Think Global. This is our September edition. And at Think Global, we always like to say it over and over again, where the world is our home, where strangers become friends and friends become family. And we believe in that. And actually, by the time that this is released, I'll be back on the road again, John, to Southeast Asia, hanging out with a lot of people over there, which I'm looking forward to. We're past Labor Day, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
official end of the summer.
The official end of the summer.
I mean,
and well, actually,
it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
summer's over. Pools are closed. Kids are back in school. Labor Day kind of marks that.
It kind of marks a transition to the fall of the year.
Yeah.
And with the fall of the year, our schedules pick back up. Man, I had a fun summer. How about you?
Really fun summer. I was processing that or reflecting on that with my wife the other day. We're out for a walk, and we were talking about that exact thing. We had a great summer.
Yeah, and that's actually what Lynn and I did too. We've been talking like, man, of all the summers we've had recently, like we've gone to concerts, we've been with family, we've traveled, we've been on the beach, we've been on vacation in North Carolina. It's been a fun summer.
Yeah.
So in that reason, I hate to see it end. Another reality is, man, fall is coming, and that means the leaves fall, and yards need to be raked, and following that is snow. Wow, I can't wait for spring. All right, I'm ready for spring. Anyway, and it's just September. Anyway, folks, it is September, and John and I today are going to chat about a book that I recently read, and John has read parts of it. You're going to read the whole thing.
I'm catching up. Yeah.
Okay, you're catching up. And that's what we'd like to do here once in a while on Think Global, like take books and just let people know about those books and some takeaways from it. And actually, there are a ton of takeaways from the book that I'm about to talk about. It was a part of one of my vacations. Listened to it on Audible. Ryan Holiday is the author. He also reads it on the Audible book, which I always love when the author reads it because they read it with a sense of passion.
It's always better.
Yeah, it's always better that way. So anyway, and the book by Ryan Holiday is this, Right Thing Right Now. And Right Thing Right Now is a book just about doing the right thing today, right now, making that decision. And it's filled with a lot of chapters that they're 6 or 7 minutes long. And every chapter has something rather amazing in it. And I love it. I mean, you don't always agree with every book, and there are parts you say, wish you wouldn't have written that, but whatever. But this, by and large, it's the fourth book in a series that he's written, which I love. The first one, I think, was Courage is Calling. I think we may have talked about that in a past podcast. Yeah. So if you haven't picked up his books, pick it up. He's just got a lot of good insights, a lot of good information that I actually love. And it's challenging. It's just great reminders of how to live today. So today, 2 topics, 2 chapters that we're just actually going to whet the appetite of people. Yeah. And hopefully get people to think about.
I'm mostly going to get your take on these 2 chapters because you listened to them and you were inspired by it on vacation. Yeah. And now, like I said, I'm in catch-up mode trying to read. But I have listened to these 2 chapters out of the book. So I don't have the full context of the whole book, but to our listeners, I have listened to these 2 chapters. I'm not completely in the dark here. But the first one we want to talk about is a chapter that was called Be Loyal.
Yes.
Talk about that. Why did that stand out to you?
One of the things I think that Ryan Holiday does is that he takes the principles from the past, and what I love is the history that comes out, the stories that he brings to light about different leaders or people who were they were influencers before being an influencer was popular, but they had profound influence on the lives of people and profound influence on humanity. And actually, a lot of us reap the benefit of those people. And so that's why I love his writings. And again, from a secular perspective, he just does a great job of looking through history and pulling out statements that just stick with you. That says, you know what, there's something to learn here. So that's what I love about it. And so what stuck out to Be Loyal in the chapter on Be Loyal actually is one of his concluding comments, and I loved it. And that is this, loyalty is not what we expect; it's what we give. And that stood out to me. We all want people to be loyal to us. We want loyal loyalty from our family. We want loyalty from our friends. We want loyalty from people we work with or people that we supervise. And what we forget along the way is that loyalty begins with me. And that basic sense of just what it means to be a person. And actually what it's doing is this, John. It's looking at my character. Like so often we're external focused, like, they're not loyal or they should have been loyal or whatever. And I'm offended or I'm hurt because they weren't loyal. And we haven't stopped long enough to think, am I loyal? Like in my relationships, in my family and in my friendships and at work, am I loyal to that? Because it tends to be that we're a very me-centered culture and it's about me. And so that's what I think was provocative to me was that that loyalty begins with me. It's not something I get to expect. It's something I do.
Yeah.
It's who I am. It's what makes me. And that's what this whole book is about, is like, what makes you who you are? Anyway, that's why I love that chapter.
And I loved what he does draw a line in there of like, loyalty doesn't always mean condoning the behavior of people. Because I think sometimes, maybe it's just me, I hear loyalty and the connotation I sometimes associate with it is, I'm going to follow this person come, and I say this, hell or high water. Wherever they go, I'm going because I'm loyal to them. And that person, and in my loyalty, we might go down some dark roads. But that's not what he's saying. That's not the point. That's not loyalty. He talks about, you don't have to agree or condone everything that person does, or that thing does, but you're loyal to them. So anyway, I appreciated him saying that, because when I just see the title, Be Loyal, my brain thinks like, well, sometimes that leads to bad places.
That's right. It's not blind loyalty.
Yeah.
But what I also liked about it was that, he spoke of one of our past presidents who showed up at a funeral of a guy who was actually guilty. And he knew that could cost his reputation. People would question why he went to the funeral. And the simple point in that was like, I'm there because I'm loyal to humanity. And in that moment, there are those who are hurting. There are those who are grieving. And though I recognize the reputation of that individual, I'm there because I'm loyal to humanity and the dignity of humanity. So even when a person is wrong, there's this sense of loyalty, not to their behavior, but loyalty to their humanity and their fallenness and their brokenness. And I think that's the beautiful part of loyalty, and it's me being loyal. Because we've all had friends who've let us down, or a spouse who's let us down, or a child who's let us down, or a coworker who's let us down, and they might have been very wrong. But loyalty just says, I'm going to be human to you, and I'm going to treat you like an image bearer. So it's a really cool take on loyalty.
Here's a quote that goes along with what we're talking about. He says, this is what Ryan says in the book. We have an obligation to the people who helped us, the places that made us, to those who have been loyal to us, to the truth, to the cause, the downtrodden, the besieged, and the friendless.
Yeah.
Like we have an obligation to those people or those things. To be loyal.
Yeah, because of who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says, this is back to the point of like, it's not just blind loyalty. He says, loyalty is not having all the same opinions, going along with everything that other people do or say. It doesn't mean we never stand up for ourselves or others or advocate for the truth.
That's right.
So I wanted to put that out there because listeners might think like, oh my gosh, you're just going to loyally follow somebody. And, no, that's not what we're saying. But it is an obligation to those. I love how he put that. To the people who helped us in the places that made us.
That's right.
Like I like that.
Yeah, not to forget the past.
Right.
Actually, what it's doing is it's taking a principle beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
Again, against the idea that everything's about me. It's all about me. But being loyal to that, like you do look back, and you have so much has shaped us, and we should be grateful for that. And I love what he says there about being loyal to the friendless. Like actually, one of the points he makes in that chapter is loyalty does cost us. And like, there are not a lot of people out there who naturally, or even here, who naturally want to be a friend to the friendless. But that's what loyalty does. And loyalty helps us see people like that. And because they're human and because they're made in the image of God, like loyalty says, I care, and I want to do something,
Yeah.
and I want to invest in you. So anyway, loyalty that was a great chapter.
I love that. There's a final quote from loyalty that's going to be a segue to our next one. This is a quote from the Be Loyal chapter. We can love them as a person even if we hate what they did.
Yes.
So,
boom.
The next chapter is called Be Decent.
Yes.
So how do you love people even when you hate what they did?
Right.
Decency, kindness goes into that, but the chapter is called Be Decent. So they're not sequential chapters. I think Be Decent is actually before Be Loyal in the book, like several chapters before it. But anyway, why does Be Decent pop out to you?
Actually, Be Decent sticks out to me because, man, when I look around right now, there is a lack of decency. And we're not talking about like manners or stuff. We're talking about at the core of who we are to be decent. And you picked me up this morning at the Jeep dealership because my vehicle needed an inspection and a change of batteries and things like that because of some failures in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you picked me up, I told you a story. And so these are anecdotal, but I think it gets to be decent, what it means to be decent.
Mm-hmm.
First one, within the last 2 weeks, Lynn and I came home from a trip, went to the parking lot at the airport. My battery was dead. And my immediate thought was, I've got jumper cables. The first person that drives past in the parking lot, I'll ask him if I can just get a jump. Mm-hmm. A person drives by. I'm not going to try to identify the person, what they look like, what age they were. But I stopped them. They rolled down the window, pushed the button, it went down. And from their car, I just looked in and said, hey, look, my battery's dead. Would you mind just taking the time to let me get my vehicle jumped so I can get out of here? And the answer was, I can't help you today. And they drove away. And my wife and I looked at each other like, what?
Yeah.
And the thought, I'll confess, the thought in my brain was, well, on their way home, when they're stuck, I hope they think about what they just did to me. But we're all in that place where sometimes we just need just one little simple act of decency.
Yeah.
Well, on the way to the Jeep dealership this morning, I thought I'm going to listen to this chapter again on Audible. So I had it connected to my vehicle. I'm listening to it, and it's just a chapter about treating people with decency. Like, one of the principles he talks about is like, sometimes people who work in the service industry on Sundays hate working on Sundays in restaurants because the crowds that come in and who are demanding and high expectations and critical of the food come in, and it's kind of like their worst day of the week. And one of the reasons is they just came from church. Like, wow. Like, and I listen to that and I think, oh my goodness, of all people who should be decent, it's the person who just sat in church. But that's actually a part of the industry. How we treat airline attendants and the way we are so easy to get upset with them. And again, you can talk about this in a moment, but like even our political climate right now, it's just a decency. So I'm listening to this and I go into the Jeep dealership and I'm being kind to the guy, even though like, man, you just replaced these things, like 3 or 4 months ago. And so I practice decency. Somebody else drives in, they get out, and they look at the person helping them. I'm angry. I'm upset. You better fix this. You should have done it right the last time. And that person walked off to the waiting room or whatever it is, the place where you wait. And I kind of chuckled to myself. I walked over to this young lady who was the recipient of it. And I said, on my way here, I was listening to a book on what it means to be decent to people. And she kind of laughed. And I said, you did not receive decency. I said, I'm sorry about that. You know what? I hope you have a great day in spite of that. And so I think that's the idea of being decent. It's like waking up in the morning saying, you know what? I'm going to live this day just being decent to other people. Like it's a character quality that I actually just love.
Yeah. Here's a quote from the book that will go with what you're saying. He says this in that chapter called Be Decent. How we treat people in ordinary circumstances is one thing. how we treat them when we're tired, when we're stressed, when the weight of the world is on our shoulders, when someone has just screwed up, just cost us something serious. This says so much more. And that was the example this morning. I don't know what's going on in that person's life, but they were stressed. They were probably tired, maybe tired of their vehicle having problems. And they walked in, they got out of the car, and they took it out on that poor lady that works the desk at the dealership. But
and my thought was like, what is that lady at the dealership going through in her own life?
Right.
And she was just the recipient of that.
Yeah. Anyway. So there's the other quote. Here's another quote from that. You just tell stories. I'll be the quote guy.
Okay.
So
we are a good team.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the quote. People are having a hard time out there. Let's not contribute to anyone's burdens. Let's try to lighten them when we can.
I like that.
That's
good.
It. And that's what that lady could have done. And in many ways, that's probably what you did as you walked over and, kind of made light of the situation and then tried to turn the corner for her. It's like, you don't know what somebody's going through. And there's another quote out there of like, everybody's going through something. Like you don't know what's the quote? You don't know what other burdens people are carrying.
Right.
So anyway, that's kind of what he's saying there. Anyway, there's so much to say about this whole thing of being decency. You brought up politics a second ago. And last week I was visiting a large organization. I was down in Alabama, and the leader of this organization, they were doing their all staff meeting, maybe 500 or 600 people in the room. And he doesn't do this every staff meeting, but for this staff meeting, he was, and I'm at the staff meeting. I'm just a fly on the wall. I don't work there, but I got invited to go to their staff meeting. And he said, I have 18 values and principles that I want to go through today. I want to talk through all 18 of these values and principles. And he went through them really fast. But the last one was, we value and honor all people. And the reason he brought that up, he said, the reason I'm mentioning this today, and the reason I want to emphasize this today is because in the season and the climate that we're in politics, let's not lose sight of the fact that we value and we honor all people.
That's right.
Have your convictions.
Right.
I've got political convictions. I know you do too. Most people do. And that's okay. That's actually good. That's healthy.
Right.
But don't lose sight that we value and we honor all people. And I was thinking about, should I repeat that on this podcast? Should we be broadcasting that? I think we should. Like, as the heat goes up in this political climate, it's going to get hotter and hotter, come closer and closer to November. If you're listening to this a few years after the election, this is the election year of 2024.
That's right.
These podcasts last forever. Anyway, it's going to get hotter the closer we get to November. And we need to continue to remind each other, hey, don't forget, we value and we honor all people.
Right.
And I think that's the idea of this. Like, show decency, whatever your political convictions may be, whoever you're voting for. Hey, at the end of the day, it's a vote.
Right.
Like,
and we're people.
I'd rather value and honor you than worry about who you're voting for.
Right.
Like, so anyway, I just thought that was a really good reminder. And I think it's a good reminder in this chapter of like, let's be decent.
Right.
Especially in the midst of political heatedness.
Right. And I think and that's the macro level. And I think for me, for all of us, it's like, that's the macro, but we need to take it to the micro. Like, what would happen in our marriages, in our families, in our neighborhoods if we were just decent people?
Yeah.
And we decided, again, the depth of decency, not just like this half-hearted thing that sometimes we talk about, but what does it mean to be decent by dignifying people, by honoring those who are, outside of our circles, honoring those where we live. Cultures may be different because we're speaking about, think global. Like, so, this goes way beyond just like this country or where we live, but these principles actually apply globally of, what it means to be decent by respecting a culture, to respect the differences, being decent by respecting their opinions, and being decent by honoring them and showing them value, the loyalty to the friendless, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, those two chapters stuck out to me.
Yeah.
We may do a couple more chapters next time, but
well, I better get to reading. But read some more. Read more of the book. But I like that idea of like loyalty. Like, a lot of people listening to this podcast, they listen to this podcast because they have experience either living in or visiting places around the world, so they find the stuff that we talk about interesting. And so that idea of even being loyal to a place that you live that's outside of your home culture.
Right.
You know, you picked it, you went there, some might say I was called there.
Right.
And in the midst of hardship, don't forget your loyalty to the calling.
Right, right.
I think that's important as well.
Right.
And in the midst of difficulty and cultural mishaps and cultural misunderstandings, be decent to people that you don't understand.
Right.
Just because you don't understand them doesn't make them wrong.
Yeah.
It make their way wrong or the way they do things wrong. It doesn't make their political system necessarily wrong, or even how they run their shop necessarily wrong at the micro level.
Yeah.
Like maybe you're in a culture where they bargain for everything in a market. That's not necessarily wrong if you're used to walking into a grocery store and just buying groceries at a fixed price.
Right.
So keep your decency in the midst of the bargaining
right
thing. You know, like
that's right.
Anyway,
honoring people that way.
Yeah, those are just very, very micro examples.
Yeah. Anyway, all of that to say, folks, loyalty, be loyal. Decency, be decent. You never know the impact that's going to have on people. I would personally highly recommend this read by Ryan Holiday. The name of the book again is?
Right Thing, Right Now.
Thank you. And that, I believe, a lot of short, small chapters that just force us to think about who we are, our character, the discipline of our lives, something worthy of a read. It's a great listen. It's an easy listen. And maybe next time we might chat about more of that. But periodically, we'd like to highlight books that we've been reading. And it's information to pass on. So hopefully that you take a chance to take a listen to that, read it. It's worth it. Anyway, from both John and I here at Think Global, thanks for tuning in again. We'll be back in October with another edition of Think Global.